The Washington Capitals have fleeced the NHL with two of their top prospects dominating the World Junior Tournament, bringing home gold. In this video, we're going to talk about how big this is for the future of the Washington Capitals and when we will eventually see these guys wear a Capitals jersey. So you're not going to want to miss this episode of Hat Trick HQ. But before we get into it, we got to say that 91% of you guys watching these videos aren't subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up on the latest NHL news, make sure to hit that subscribe button. But with that said, Darius, we're gonna jump right into this. Obviously, if you missed it yesterday, the United States of America won the gold medal for the World Junior Tournament, and this team was very dominant throughout the whole tournament. And the main reason is that it is the tournament MVP, Capitals top prospect Ryan Leonard, going out winning player of the tournament for this team, putting up 10 points in 7 games, having an even 5 goals, 5 assists. And Darius, this guy looked amazing throughout this entire tournament for this United States team, and it's looking like this guy's developing very well in the Boston College and is now transitioning over to the national game, and I think eventually it will translate over to the NHL.
And I think it could translate to the NHL sooner than Capitals fans or, people who watch hockey fans think at this point. We might see him this season. We'll talk to that point in a bit. But this year in Boston College, obviously great tournament, right? World Junior Hockey Championships, USA, pretty dominant. They only lost once. It was in overtime, and it was to Finland, the team that they ended up beating in overtime, or in a shootout, I should say, in the final. And Ryan Leonard was a huge part of that, and another guy which we'll touch on as well later in the episode. But Ryan Leonard is looking like he is going to be an absolute stud. Now, when you draft somebody 8th overall in the NHL draft, you're hoping that they will become that, but he is showing the signs very early on. Again, only a 2005 born, so he was drafted just a couple of years ago. But this year in Boston College, last year, great season. First year in Boston College, he had 60 points in 41 games. So far this season, he's only played 16 games, but he has 19 points. So again, over a point a game player. Looks like he's probably going to do exactly what he did last year, although there's a bit more distractions, like, back-to-back World Junior Gold for him. But he's looking like an absolute stud, and he's going to be a really good piece for the Washington Capitals, not just in the future, but maybe even this season, soon. It could be soon that we see this guy making an impact at the NHL level. He is too good for where he is playing.
Yeah, 100%. This guy's an absolute beauty, too. Some of his quotes we got from his interview post-game last night, seeing him running down the tunnel with the trophy, this kid was fired up, and it's just great to see that, him at such a young age can enjoy this, win back-to-back gold medals, and as the captain, win this as the captain, be able to host the trophy first. It's just so good for his development at such a young age, and a team in Washington where their captain is on the way out soon. Unfortunately, I want to see Ovi play until he's 60 because he's just so good. But I think this is going to be very big for the Washington Capitals going forward. And to speak to your point, Ryan Whitney on the Spittin' Chicklets podcast, former NHLer, said, he thinks we may see Ryan Leonard in this Capitals lineup in Game 1 of the playoffs, and I don't think that's too far out of the realm there, Darius.
No, I don't think it is. I think we're actually going to see him this year in the playoffs. Again, it depends what the Washington Capitals do at the trade deadline. If they add a couple pieces, then I'm not sure if we will see him. But if they don't, and I actually don't think that they're going to add too many pieces. I think they think they're good enough, and for good reason, obviously, right? They're tops at the Metro Division. But Ryan Leonard, his season's going to end. He's obviously going to go pro next season. I don't know if that's a real surprise to anybody, right? He's way too good for Boston College right now. But he's going to finish his season. He's obviously going to try and win a championship with them. But I think when you look forward to the playoffs, to next year, he wants to go pro. And we've seen it before. Like, just another example, like Matthew Nyes with the Toronto Maple Leafs just a couple of years ago. His season wraps up. He makes the jump to the NHL, and he's been in the NHL and a very effective NHLer since then. So I could see that being exactly the case with Ryan Leonard this season. And not only that, I think they have confidence in him to make an impact. They wouldn't just bring him up for no reason. I think this is a guy who can legitimately help them score goals and can fit right into their system.
And it's proven to be successful. We've seen it with Cole Caulfield in Montreal during the COVID year. He kind of jumped in, electrified this offense in the playoffs, and they went to the Stanley Cup final that year. Some people say it doesn't count, COVID year, but I count it as a Montreal fan. And this is exactly what a guy like Ryan Leonard can do to this Washington Capitals team. He can come in late in the season during the playoffs and just electrify this bottom six's offense and really help give him that extra push. And I really do hope we do see this, because I think this guy's going to be an excellent NHLer in the near future. And like you said, I could see him going pro as soon as this year's playoffs. But it doesn't stop at Ryan Leonard for the Capitals, because they have a guy in Cole Hutson here who has been playing unreal as well. I mean, now you see these are the list of the entire awards for the World Juniors, and you can see Cole Hutson making this IIHF All-Star team, first team, whatever you want to call it, but he made this, and for good reason, because he was the first ever defenseman to lead the tournament in points. Of all time, the first ever defenseman to lead the entire tournament in points is Cole Hutson, and he did it at great rate here. He had 3 goals, 8 assists for 11 points in this tournament, and man, we're so fired up at Ryan Leonard, but Cole Hutson, man, he's looking like he could be a guy who comes over soon as well.
Well, there's no real comparison, I guess. They play different positions, and obviously one is older, so we're looking for Ryan Leonard to make the jump sooner. But when you look at a guy like Hutson here, I mean, he's going to make the jump sooner rather than later as well. Like, he's too good for where he's playing as well. His first season in Boston University this year, again, 14 points in 16 games. He's almost a point-a-game player as a defenseman. Like you mentioned, the first defenseman in tournament history to lead the tournament in points. There have been Hall of Fame defensemen who have played in this tournament that then put up the points that he did this year. He was dominant. It's not just the stats. If you look at the eye test, if you watch the games, he was dominant in games like against Canada. In almost every single game, he was able to take over to a degree, right? And it's just his skating style. It's very similar to his brother, who's now playing for the Montreal Canadiens, and we're seeing how that's working as well and how that looks. So, if he has a similar, road to the NHL, I think that this guy can be a very, very effective player for the Washington Capitals sooner rather than later. Again, I don't think he's going to make the jump to pro as soon as Ryan Leonard, but I think that that's coming very soon. Could be in a season, could be in 2, but he's going to be a very effective NHLer. And the Washington Capitals, the main squad have set themselves up very nicely here, because if you look at last year, the year before, you're thinking, okay, Ovi's getting older. They're probably just going to acquire a couple pieces here to make sure he gets the record. But now they've set themselves up with all these prospects coming in where you go, wow, they might actually be really good in the transaction period, or the transition period from Ovi retiring when he eventually does. So I think that they've put together some great prospects here, and obviously they're showing out when it matters in tournaments like this.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think they're in a perfect position right now. Obviously, when Ovi leaves, it is going to be a big hit, because this guy's one of the best goal scorers of all time, if not the best. And, Ryan Leonard can step in. He's not going to be one of the best goal scorers of all time, I wouldn't say, but he's definitely going to help fill this void when Ovi leaves. And like you said, the transition period won't be that rough, as we've seen in previous years when big stars go down or just retire or whatever. We see teams just go straight into that rebuild, and then they're bad for a few years. But I don't think Washington is going to have to, because they've had these guys in the pipeline for such a long time, developing into stars, to where Ryan Leonard could easily come in this season and be a good piece for them. And like you said, Cole Hutson, he doesn't need to make this jump right away, but I look at him as a good replacement for a guy like John Carlson. I think John Carlson is getting up there in age. Cole Hutson can come in and he won't have a big shot like Carlson. He had scored some great goals in this tournament, but he's going to be such a great puck moving guy for this team on the blue line that I think these two guys are really going to help that transition period and just this Washington team in general. But Darius, before we wrap up, I want to just get your thoughts on Washington going forward. I mean, this team is dominant right now. What are you thinking? Where do you think the Capitals are going to end up at the end of the season?
Well, they have a real shot to make some noise in the playoffs. Last year, obviously squeaking into the playoffs, I think they were the worst team in the Cap era to make the playoffs, but they've completely turned that around this year. They added some very good pieces. They retooled on the fly. And it's not just that, it's the pieces that are coming up. They have Andrew Crystal, who was a Team Canada snub, if you want to call it that. Probably should have been on the team. They have Alexei Protas's brother, who's also playing for the Windsor Spitfires right now, who's another big boy, right? Protas has been fantastic for the Washington Capitals. One thing I will say is they've added skill, but they've also added a lot of size. Like they're going to be a problem this year in the playoffs with not the way that they play with guys like Tom Wilson as well. They are going to be a problem in the playoffs this year. I could see them going 2-3 rounds deep because they're playing with a lot of energy, a lot of legs. They have some youth in the lineup now, and they're big. And Spencer Carberry has these guys playing well. So the transition, I should say, from last year to this year is very crazy, right? They added a lot of great pieces. I love what they did. They added goaltending as well. Logan Thompson has been good. So I love what they did with this team. And Casey, I think they're going to make some noise this year.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think going into this trade deadline, they are going to be very active buyers to try to fill those holes that they do have in this lineup. But right now, this team's very dominant, and I could definitely see them going on a little run here. Logan Thompson stays as hot as he is in the playoffs. There's not going to be many teams that are going to put the puck past him. But Washington Capitals, you fans, you guys got to be very excited right now. Let us know your thoughts on Leonard, on Hutson, down below in the comments section. Love reading all your guys' comments. If you enjoyed this one, leave a like on the video, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to hit 9,000 subscribers. We'd really appreciate it. If you're not subscribed already, you want to keep up on the latest Caps news and just NHL news in general, hit that subscribe button. But as always, I've been your host, KC, alongside my co-host, Darius. We'll catch you in the next one.